Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Ai, go.
we have a quorum. And why don't we begin? Let's go around the table. Ginny, why don't we start with you?
Present.
Second.
No, Mark.
Oh, Mark, sorry, Mark. Mark St. Ange, present.
Jennifer Dial, present.
Marianne Weatherall, present.
Tom Reardon, present.
Eric Eisner, present and accounted for.
Good. So we may have people joining us as the evening progresses. We'll see. This is our annual meeting, which is required by statute. And so I could think of no subject more appropriate to an annual meeting than trying to figure out how to get our house in order and have documents that are both clear and concise and transparent. I think I just have to say to the three of you, we are all in your debt. I think we can argue tonight about whether this or that could be better, but this has been a major step forward and a lot of work on your part. And so thank you very much.
I'll second that.
Great. I think I've got some copies that Tracy was good enough to bring if people don't have it or want it or
I have
what?
extra one.
I don't have a copy.
Yeah, I'd love actually a hard
I just-
copy.
I just have one.
My other one was.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
So,
Does anyone need another?
anybody?
I always like looking at
You
paper
can take this
personally.
one. Wait, I'll take.
Okay.
Take this one.
So I thought maybe the order that we'd present this material is to start with Mary Ann, because she has the handbook, which is the broader kind of scope. And then to Ginny, where we're talking specifically about the application materials and the surround of that. And then to Jen on how we're going to promote this and bring it to the awareness of the web and the forces of good in the internet, if there are any. So, Mary Ann, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm presenting tonight the draft document of the committee process manual. And how this came about was when I first joined the committee about 3 or 4 years ago, I had asked for a manual. And I didn't, there was none existing. And so I looked to other towns for guidance. But I recognized, and I think many others on this board did as well, that we needed a process manual just to explain what we do here and what is the community, what the CPA is, the Community Preservation Act, what the original words were, what were the four processes that we were supposed to follow through with. So Ginny, Jen, and I have we decided that there were a few things necessary, and one of them was to update our website so that the community would have, the public would have an understanding of what the Community Preservation Act was, and then as well update our our documents as well, so that when you did grants, you knew what you were doing and that they were much better. And then this process manual. So this process manual is to help new and current members on what the Community Preservation Act is, what the background of it, the history of how it came about, how it's involved in the state of Massachusetts, how finances are delegated, and then the next section of this process manual is to show how to run a meeting. And then how do we act on the CPA? How do we act on this act? And what are our steps to do? What are the time periods that we're supposed to be meeting? As well as the different roles in our board. There's a chair, there's a vice chair, there's an administrator. What does everybody do? And for me, it was very helpful because I didn't realize that there were other people involved beyond this board. I mean, there's a town meeting as well, but there's steps such as, I think it was Capital gets involved as well. And,
Advisory.
or advisory, I'm sorry. I should know this by now. I've been in this document for long. And it gives an explanation about that. And then how we should also be promoting ourselves so that instead of the same characters coming up before us year after year, who else can we reach out to? How do we get other people aware that we even exist? A lot of people's share our name around this, the CPC, but what does that mean? And how do other boards get grants? So that's an opportunity for us to really promote all the great things that we do. And there is a form that shows what we've done since, I think, 2001. And we've given out over, I think over 80 grants, if not more than that as well. So I just wanted to give us some clues on who we are, what great things we've done, and some history about what we do, and to understand particularly the finances. What would have been helpful this year is to learn about bonding. What is that? How does that work? So I hope this is a good step one. I consider it a fluid document that we can keep tweaking it and changing it for right now. But every year we're supposed to be doing that according to the Community Preservation Act. Every year we are supposed to look at this document, make changes to it, review it, make sure it's accurate. And also have a meeting, a public meeting where we invite the public, such as today, to hear what they are interested in and what else would they like us to focus in. I mean, within these 4 areas that we're supposed to work in. I hope this helps. We can talk all about it. And this document flows into Virginia's document, which is all about grants. So this is just the process. And then there's another revised, which is grants. I'll hand it to you.
Good.
All right, we open it up to questions, comments.
That's right.
Anybody have questions or comments?
No, we kind of discussed it and made a bunch of edits on, is it Friday?
Right.
To it, and there are a couple of notes though in here that we have. I don't know if you wanted to bring those up, a couple of the questions that we have
Oh,
about
yes.
some of the structure.
Yes, so about our structure, we looked at our bylaw. And our bylaw was written in, I think it was 2001.
None of us want to.
Yes. Our bylaw was written in 2001, and it identifies the different committee members that are on our committee. Those committee titles have changed, or they may have been existing then. And we would like to update those committee titles. But in addition, we made some recommendations of who else could join our committee and be of value to us. So we wanted to put that in. I think I wrote that in. Right here. Oh, okay. For instance, thank you. We recommend replacing the Board of Park Commission, because the town doesn't have a Board of Park Commission, with the Recreation Commission. Okay. Well, right now, we don't have anyone from the Recreation Commission on this board. Also, we wanted to replace the Water Commission with the Open Space and Recreation Committee. I represent the Open Space and Recreation Committee, and I am not on this, but I've been told that I have to be on this board, so it would probably be good.
Isn't Darren Souza on the other recreation?
He might be. He might be
Hi,
on.
hi, Tom. I am not.
Oh, great.
Oh,
This is.
Are you at large?
I am 2 minutes away.
Oh,
Thank
oh,
you.
great. Well,
There's 3 of us, it's you, me,
Good.
and him.
okay. Good. We'll look forward to seeing you, Darren. Thank you.
Last quarter, we had a lot of discussion about affordable housing, but we don't have a representative of affordable housing, and yet this act talks a lot about affordable housing.
Yep.
So it would be good to have someone on this board from that.
I think when the CPC started, Cohasset Housing Authority was the only organization. But I feel that we should have the Affordable Housing Commission on, because we deal with supporting an existing entity. They're dealing with trying to create new housing. It'd be good for us to, work together, but also we're trying to do 2 different things.
Do you suggest here that the town meeting is needed to amend these? Is that
Yes,
Well,
correct?
it's under the bylaw.
it's in the bylaw.
So we assumed, and correct us if we're wrong, we assumed that if we wanted to amend the bylaw to change it,
Yep.
we would need to be voted on, right?
Okay.
I think so. I think it has to go.
And we should really discuss a little further with everybody else here too, how everybody feels about
Right,
amending the group.
right.
Yeah.
Typically, on boards across Massachusetts that have CPCs, they have 7 to 9 people. And they've made some recommendations of who they are, and that's a couple pages back if you want to look at it. It's under page, I tried to identify it better this time. Maybe I still have to work on it. It was outlined on
General board, page 5.
page 5. Okay.
Bottom of page 5.
Oh, bottom of page 5, so now it's here. It's moved again. Bottom of page 5, it's letter I, General Board Organization and Responsibilities, and it comes under A2, which says, has 7 to 9 members representing key constituencies such as the Conservation Commission, the Historical Commission, the Planning Board, the Housing Authority, and Recreation Commission. So that's typically what's on our board, or on boards across the state. So we're recommending on page 7 that we adjust the current board members, and the tweaks are in the yellow, or the highlighted, which is down here.
Yep.
Is the
So-
planning board's function to keep us abreast of town priorities or the town plan, master plan? Is that their function on the board?
For whose function in
The
particular?
planning board, why is the
Oh.
planning board on this board? Is it to keep
I
us abreast of the larger plan of the town? and-
I thought it was for that, to be, to have, to focus on the master plan. That's what it was.
That was the assumption.
Do we have just one master plan or do we have several?
Well, I think we're working right now on the generation, which would be 2019's master plan, but there was probably master plans before that. I don't think there's a current one right now.
Thanks.
You know, if there's what the most current town master plan.
No.
In the office, I want to say it goes to 2021 to 2025.
Okay.
I could try and pull.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, okay.
that's pretty current then.
It's,
Oh.
Yeah.
Pete Pescatori was the head of the,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Peter?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, oh,
I'm
this,
sorry, Pete was on it. Katie, I'm sorry. Let me check.
the 2019 one was the one I found. It might be been
I think
updated.
they're all in the library.
Mhm.
Would it make any sense to have, instead of the planning board, the capital budget committee? They're the people who are looking at long-range planning, looking at,
They say no to everything.
no, it's just,
Yes, they do.
But-
I don't know if it, it
I
hasn't, I
think
haven't
that
seen
their-
that on
their
other
role comes
boards.
when we've already
I don't know.
recommended grants for funding, and then the advisory and the capital budget, don't they both get a crack at commenting on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
Yep.
capital comes
Yep.
in
They don't need to
next.
be at this stage, they, as long as they haven't,
Right.
They're in stage 2, just.
yeah.
What happens is after we make our decisions on who should be granted and the finances to be
Yeah.
given to them, then our recommendations are passed on to the select board. And then their job is to look, or if they want, I guess, is to look back at our mission statement and at the plan of the town and see if they correlate. And if they agree with what our recommendations are. And then after that, it goes to capital budget. And then
Advisory,
an advisory,
that's enough.
and they make, it's actually advisory, I'm sorry. An advisory, and then advisory critiques it, and then they write the statement for the warrant that is presented to the town.
This is inside. One way to make ourselves a little better known is to have a little bit more information on what we're recommending for funding. I mean, it's, one vague sentence each. It's just a way of getting a little more information about us up there.
Oh, I
and what we
see,
do.
right. And then one other issue that kind of struck us, that came out of the bylaw, was the membership terms. And we noticed that generally everyone is assigned about a 3-year, mostly 3 and 2 years. But we have not been keeping up with that. at all. Usually, if someone steps out, then someone steps in to fulfill the hole, you could say. So if someone left with a 2-year term still on there, if someone was assigned a 3-year, for instance, and they stepped out and they had 2 years left on their seat, another person would come in and then take over for those remaining 2 terms. Well, it doesn't, it's actually not supposed to work like that. It's supposed to be, you start at the beginning. You start at year 1, 1, 2, 3. So I think we should be more consistent.
Does that make any sense, though, if all members are coming out of a specific committee who actually appoints the person they want to be on this board? So, go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know, I misspoke, so it is 2019.
Okay.
Open space. The not the open space, the master plan, the open space was 2019 to 2026. That plan is still active.
Okay.
So I mixed the two of them up. As far as the terms go too, the board recently, a couple of years ago, staggered them and they changed it that way. So
Oh.
that not 2 or 3 people are rolling off the same year. They spent quite a bit of time on it, trying to like reset everybody's terms. So
Okay.
there was a reason behind it. I don't remember all the details, but it's
Oh.
definitely something you should talk to maybe Chief about.
Oh, okay.
This
There was a
year, they,
reason behind it, so everybody can roll
So
off.
all the people who were appointed this year were appointed for there was a 3-year, there was a 2-year,
Yeah,
1 year.
yeah.
You know,
So to get us onto some sort of rotation.
Okay.
does that make sense when actually, say I go off the board? It's the housing authority that's going to come up with the next person to come on this.
But that person would come out,
It doesn't have to be staggered.
let's say that you were on for one last year and you retired, they would appoint somebody, that would be for 1 year. And then they could reappoint them.
Yeah, I mean,
That is
doesn't it take a little time to learn? You know, you're on for 1 year and then you could.
But then you're eligible for renewal, which in most cases happens.
Well, why
But
wouldn't that
this-
person that came on start it, like,
3
start
years?
after 3 years?
I mean, a
Because then you'd
limited
end up
term.
with everybody in 3 years.
Well, because
What they're trying to do is get some sort of orderly rotation. I mean, we don't have to be bound by that, but that's been the logic.
Would it really work? Does it work?
And I do think under what is this from, this was from the CPA law, right?
Right,
Where it
from the
says that-
bylaw.
Yeah.
That the way, is this from our bylaw?
Yes.
The membership terms?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's sort of like when we started like the councils at the school, like you start everyone on a staggered term
Mhm.
and then everyone gets to like a 3-year term, but everyone starts like 1, 2, 3. And then on the rotation, then they go to 3 or something, so that it then becomes staggered. But I guess for the, I guess it's, I mean, I don't know how long on the other commissions
no
people are
idea.
on, like, I don't know how long a appointment is on like the historical.
It's 3 years.
So you'd be then,
I think most of them are 3 years.
I think they start.
Conservation.
But unless you pick up with somebody else's term, and like I had filled someone else's term twice that left. And then I, am appointed myself too, so it's kind of,
One of the questions is this ours to do, or is this the selectmen who determine
The membership terms.
or the
the terms?
bylaws.
Yeah, the terms of the membership, because they appoint.
okay, Tracy says
I-
yes.
No, I'm just saying, it is.
I don't know.
part of the bylaw, but this, the select board appoints all members, so.
So they would, I would think, have a voice in what the terms are that they're appointing people to. Is that wrong, or?
Yes, it's true.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at it, the purpose of having someone come on for 3 years instead of 1 is to guarantee that that particular agency has a qualified representative. He learns the first year and he spends 2 years after that. The town benefits from his experience. If that person leaves after 1 year, or they have to go through the process again, you're continually turning people over and you're losing a lot of what I would call experience and overview. In any case, it won't make much difference because there's always got to be a housing person on there. Whether it's a one person, then replacement, or one doing 3 years, all right.
Yeah, how many people we have on the board, I don't know about other ones, 5. There are not too many people to choose from.
Yeah, well, the same thing with
All the
conservation.
ones that aren't active.
Yeah, but I think having someone come on board for more than 1 year,
I do.
I think everyone's going to benefit from that.
Maybe everybody should start.
Yeah.
Anyway. It's hard to make it work.
The practice has been that people, as long as the agency that they're representing wants them on, they stay and they get renewed. There's not a history of people getting bounced off.
You're right.
So it's a question of whether you want to have some structural rotation or not. I mean, I could go either way. I don't feel this is an article.
Just say we're gonna reappoint this person.
Yeah. Well, at any rate,
Anyway.
these are a
this-
couple of areas that we need a little more work, I think.
Yes, we have some more work. Also, at one point I had asked Chris Senior what the Board of Park Commissioners was, and he said that represented the select board. If it does, and I don't think it does, it should say select board then as our members. A select board person, then I assume is actually a citizen of the town. Just to nitty gritty, these board member positions, and as I looked at it, just the membership terms popped out to me, like we weren't being consistent with that. And the board members' titles were incorrect, and we as a group thought it might benefit to have a few more representatives of the town, because in the CPC or the CP Act, the act is to represent all different parts of the town in his as historic resource, the community housing, open space and recreation.
We should at least have solid representation
Right,
areas.
right.
And we
rec-
don't right now. We don't
Mhm.
have somebody in recreation.
In open space and recreation
Well,
is one committee, but there is a recreation committee as well. So we
Commission.
should, or commission, so we should have someone from that as well. That was my thoughts. But this is just a guidance. I thought it would be very good. Most larger towns have a manual to reference, and we do not. I just thought it would be helpful. And again, if in your free time, if you have any thoughts, to just read it through, have a giggle, and give me some notes on it, that would be.
well done. And I think,
Great job.
yeah, we can always, we're gonna have to fiddle with these things.
Sure, no.
Yeah.
But I would hope today that we could get a kind of vote on approval of the sense of direction. This is a framework in which we can continue to improve and refine. We've identified a couple of areas like the composition and terms that we need to get a little refinement on. I think in the last page, your thing, where I think that graph that you have or chart that you have ought to be consistent with the chart that Ginny had in hers. And the content is consistent, but the words are not. For example, in the bottom one, you said yes and yes versus no and no. But the differential was the parentheses thing, but they should just look alike.
Because he
Okay.
said, I didn't.
No,
Copy.
I'm not, I'm just saying that those kind of things.
Okay,
so
okay.
It looks like we have different
Setting.
things, and if you look at it carefully, we don't have different things.
Oh, no, I
Okay.
wanted to know your
Presentable.
This is the newer
thing
one?
too. I think this one is, yeah, but I could not get it off.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Stuart, his
Okay.
assistant, whoever sent me the,
Okay,
I'm not sure where, I think I got this from a handout.
Yeah.
well, it might be current.
it's a nit,
I'll
but I
look
think
at
it's the
it.
kind of thing that
Look at
we're all
this.
I've seen it on the web.
Right.
You're
It
right.
is.
Even though,
But if she has a clean copy of it.
Oh, yes.
Are there other comments, concerns? Yes, Eric.
One of the things I've noticed compared to how we function at the Concom, when a Concom project's finished, it's a different type of project. Obviously, we have engineering diagrams, lots of detail, costs, layouts, lots of issues in terms of trees and all that, wetlands. But we always have a make good at the end. We have a completion report, and a lot of time is spent on that. And I would say 25% of the projects that come up for closing down, completion, don't get completed. Our agent goes back and said, you took out too many trees, you took out the wrong trees, you took those boulders out, they're supposed to be left there, they're protected, and their problems are the drawing, or your deck is going into the wetland buffer zone and it wasn't supposed to be there. And the person has to go back and retroactively correct for these deficiencies. In my 4 years or so on the CPC, I've never had anyone bring up an issue on a project. I would question whether they actually have a comprehensive closing program at all, because we've never discussed it.
We do not.
Yeah, all right. So
But I
the
think-
question here is,
I think we're anticipating.
yeah, well,
Right.
my question here is, are we actually going to do it this time? Or are these kind of hollow words that we put in there but aren't going to
For the benefit of the town and for our historical benefit.
Mhm.
And also for people to sum up how the project went, what could have gone better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a formula.
Yeah, but who's going to do that work?
The people who have the grant are going to have the project manager.
There has to be
grant.
somebody on our behalf who comes in and receives that
Yeah,
information,
we have.
synthesizes that, and makes a presentation to us as to what that project achieved and didn't achieve, then we take a decision in the end. But who's that person going to be?
Well, it would have to be whoever's in charge of the grant project.
Well,
But they also are responsible, they'll be responsible for filling out the form.
I think the chair of the CPC should oversee and be responsible for that. And Tracy, I would think, would be a major
Yeah.
help on that process, right, Tracy?
In Concom, it would be Tracy's equivalent,
Right.
the conservation agent,
Well, yeah.
I mean,
which
right,
spends a lot of time.
right now, what we have is the vice chairs responsible to assign a liaison to every project that comes and that is granted. Or rather, every project comes before us in an application period, the vice chair assigns a liaison to guide that person through the process of
Okay.
applying. And then once they're granted, it's up to the grantor, the recipient, to announce our project has finished. We are completed, and they have to come back to us to receive a letter of completion.
Well, actually, the way I've worded it here is you don't get your final payment without a final report.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, if that's what you want, yeah.
Funds would not be forthcoming for your final payment until.
Mhm.
But there,
Or
you're
reimbursed.
right, there
That's
needs to be an
a permanent
administrative
record.
structure that oversees
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
to
yeah.
make sure that.
I would add one
each of
more,
those
one
elements
more
are-
comment if I can, Tom.
Right.
The amount of detail in the original plan necessary to do a comprehensive closeout report, got to be a lot more than we have now. I mean, we get things that don't really have a list of assets. They're not costed. They're not alternative bidding processes going on. And when you come back, you have to look at the individual costs and the steps, what was done and when it was done. And we don't have the detail on most projects
I'm not
to do
sure
that.
you really need that much detail in a final report.
No.
Successfully concluded the project. You're only going to use the actual bids that you used in the final report and how those contractors, performed and.
I'm talking about the work that was actually achieved, when it was achieved, the costs involved. Maybe we don't need that level of detail. Maybe the conservation work and their engineers and all that's quite a different area. But I would like to know when a project finishes, that the steps are completed, that the things they promised they were going to do, they did, and they roughly met their cost estimates on a line-by-line basis.
Well, we can look at that one specifically and see, because, all of these things need to be.
To add to that, Eric, I think the difference between COMCOM and this or this application for the grant is you don't get all those details as much, but we do have to see that the project met what they applied for the grant for. So if they said they were going to build a playground, we have to actually see the playground, and we have to see for the funds that we provided. We do want to see some of those receipts, but we don't need to see the whole scope of everything. It's just for what the money is for.
But although what you're talking about, if you are having a plan of a conservation area, sure, those plans might be nice to have those on record too. It depends on what you're doing.
Well, let's say it's a roof.
Yeah.
Well, let's say it's affordable housing and they want a roof. So we give them $54,000 for the roof. Okay, so we want to see the receipts for the roofing
Presumably, there's been a
company.
bid process to get to the 54,000.
Right, so we probably want to see that
But we probably should have that before.
Before the grant.
before we get the,
I
right,
mean,
that.
we have a housing manager and she handles all of these. Of course, we have to coordinate with the state as well, so, but yeah.
But we want accountability to see
Oh,
how that
sure.
$54,000 was
And I think you do
spent.
get it before they get paid, you know.
Mhm.
When you apply for funding, your funds.
And unlike
have
what we've done in the past, we actually want to have one of our members go down and see the property and see,
I
is the
think
roof
that's
on
good.
the property? Like, is it there? Because we've never done that before.
No, I agree.
Mhm.
And that's all part of also promoting our projects. And we were
Yes.
talking the other day, we should have some sort of a little celebration or opening or something when we do a project that's visible and in public,
Like the
Mhm.
playground,
Good idea.
you know, to publicize it.
like beach.
Oh, yes.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
these forms, we can maybe,
Just before we get into that, let me ask, are people comfortable if we take a vote on whether this provides the framework within which we can begin to move forward?
and
Yes,
Would somebody like to make a motion?
move that we do that.
Okay,
second.
all right. All in favor? I guess we have to go
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
aye,
Aye.
unanimous. Great.
thank you.
So thank you so much.
For your hard work.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Many hours of hard work.
The weeds.
It was great.
All right, Ginny, you have the floor.
All right. I think everybody can agree that our process needs updating. We had one little old, always relevant grant form. So what I did was I went onto the CPC site, and they have examples of best practices and what they consider good examples from different towns. So most of my materials actually have gone from this town or that town or whatever, because they had them as good examples, okay? Except the final application funding. A lot of grants myself, I put questions in there that I consider necessary. So basically, you've got several things, and it looks a little daunting, but remembering that this, first of all, the applicant only deals with one form at a time. And this process can extend over a year or two or more, so it isn't really, and a lot of these things are really guides or schedules or whatever. So annuals, and there are two things. One is for the applicants, and there are several forms that are for the board to use. Our schedule, CPC schedule, how we would evaluate, a form we could use to evaluate funding applications, even scoring them if we wanted to. A recommendation of funding to the town and the information that should include, and a summary of CPC project funding recommendations. And that's just sort of a summary for our purposes for the fiscal year, what projects we funded and so forth. So for example, the CPC project funding recommendation to the town, which we've never really, I don't think we ever had a formal form for that. But it would include things like all of the details of the people application and so forth, the project description, any conditions that we attach to that project, the funding for that project. So this is after we vote to recommend a project. And we don't do that very often, but we really should be attaching any conditions that we have that we want to place on that grant. The project budget and the funding sources, and then additional information that we might want to put in there for funding, okay? And then this is just really a form for our use that kind of summarizes all of the projects in different categories that we've done for the year. Those are pretty simple. And then the evaluation I borrow from somebody else. And it just kind of, we don't have to do it this formally, I don't think, but just kind of gives us a guide of what to look for. And I firmly believe that we should be doing evaluations sitting around the table together. I mean, we all read the grants on our own and so forth, but we really need that back and forth. And one of the other points I wanted to make was when we evaluate grants, we should do them in a group so that we're not saying, okay, oh, here's one, we'll say yes to that, and then along comes another one. Twice a year, we sit down and we take that group of grants and give it the final approval or not approval. That way, you're looking at a group together. You're seeing, you know, the strengths of each or not. Anyway, so, all right, so, and that's pretty much and a schedule for us. Okay. That I think these things I think should just really be held by the chairman, whoever is the chairman, and either filled out himself or distributed to the group to fill out, rather than putting them online.
What is that? I'm sorry.
These are 4 different forms that only the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. They're the ones I have in front of me.
And then now we have the annual
The
schedule.
timeline's really helpful.
The time. Applicant guidelines. Yeah, okay. And I tried not to, I am recommending that we put these in as a separate entry on our town website. One refers to the other, but if you embed these in this, it's just too much for people to, you know.
Okay.
This is more for the board and for interested citizens. A grant applicant has enough things to worry about, doesn't need to be going through all the rules and regulations, so. But I did incorporate some references from there.
I was gonna say, most of those are contained in the handbook, right?
No,
No.
most of these really apply to specific things that you need to keep in mind for your grant, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the,
I mean, some of them, yes.
Oh, the
some of them
descriptions
in the
are
handbook.
similar.
Yeah.
Well,
Like when you're talking about things that are allowable, you know, what you can apply for, the different
yeah,
categories of funding and so.
more expanded right in this area, but anyway.
hers is more expanded. Mine's an overview of it.
Yeah, yeah, I've tried to stick mostly, you know, some background. Because a lot of people will go right to this, but mostly it's instructions on how to fill, you know.
Yep.
create a proper grant. And the selection criteria, I sent this out to everybody, never got a single response except for Jen, I think. And so this is somebody else, some other towns, but this is kind of important because it gives us a framework for priorities. Both general in the town, for example, something like, are you saving resources that would otherwise be threatened? Are you leveraging additional public or private funds? That's right. And then each category has some recommendations too, but we need to kind of look at those and insert our own. So, and then they strongly recommend 2 different applications. One is a very brief one, so we can determine if the project's eligible. No need for them to be spending yards of time on something that's not going to be. So we look at those and we advise them about those. You can have, every meeting is public, but you can let people know that we're going to be looking at these. I want to say something though about privacy. When we talked about this a little bit, and I've done a lot of grants, and when people are doing a grant, when they're developing a grant, it's private. Nobody has a right to know what their project is or what they're doing. When they give something like this to us, it becomes us and them. It's not general public knowledge. And as far as I'm concerned, it never really is the full grant, because you can often have proprietary information in the grant, like financial information or your ideas or whatever it is. I've never known a grant that was public in that way. It's not public. Now, what you do is you write good summaries of the grant for anybody who needs them, including something you could use for publicity for the town to vote on it, whatever it is you want. But the grants, you know, are held by the town and by the people who created the application. So that's something I feel pretty strongly about. And we should be able to evaluate. So when somebody comes forward with their project eligibility grant, if there are people in the audience and they're interested, I think it's like the chair's responsibility to kind of keep things to what they're actually doing in their application here. Project description, where's the project gonna be, who's gonna be in charge, what's the projected calendar and so forth. That's it. Because it's really just an idea. It's not a developed grant, okay? Final request for funding, you have a lot more.
Well, just
Ask.
a second, isn't it different when you're dealing with public funds?
No, most grants are public funds. I mean, all the government grants, state grants, they're all public funds. No. I mean, somebody can ask for information on a grant, but you have a summary.
Mhm.
You know, and it's got enough financial information on it and so forth, and you could also include in that summary, was the project successful? You know, to what degree did they complete the project as they said they would? That's available to people, but the original grants,
What are you arguing then should not be available to the public?
the original grants that are submitted,
All of these meetings are open to the public,
yeah,
right?
they are.
They're all,
But nobody comes here with their written grant that we, you know, they'll come here and do a presentation. We see the written grants, and that's our responsibility.
Well, you're saying
But
that
it's
we
not-
shouldn't share the financials
Well,
in public, or we just.
well, you could, in a, you know, now, that's not to say the applicant isn't free to consult anybody they want. In fact, we should be encouraging people to go, you know, to consult with other committees or whatever, but that's up to them, okay?
I'd want to get the town's council's guidance on this, because I think when you're dealing with public funds and public forums, it's difficult to withhold.
I don't think so. I mean, I've done a lot of federal grants and state grants
Yep,
and community grants and private foundation grants, and they're never,
they're never public.
no, not the whole grant. No. Because you have, I mean, our grants are simple, but a lot of grants have proprietary financial information on institutions and so forth. And you have a lot of ideas. You know, somebody can come along and say, oh, well, I'll do that, or like,
Well,
but no, to my knowledge,
okay,
there has to be a record of them. We certainly do that, but, you know, that's my experience.
yep. Well, just before we go forward on that assumption, I'd like to get a,
Well,
Insight.
trying to get it from the state. I mean, I don't think our town council is necessarily gonna know, you know, much about grants being public or private. Ask Stuart.
Let's do it.
Get a,
well, let's do it in a couple of weeks so we can.
I mean, it's not we're trying to hide it, because we're going to have reports on things, and people are gonna be able to ask all the questions they want. But you know, sometimes people can kind of raise objections to somebody's ideas when they don't really, you know, it's not the place of somebody to come in here and say, well, I don't like that idea.
Do we have,
That's our job to know.
is there been a history of that where the open nature of proposals have been kind of open to, you know, just random sort of unsolicited opposition? I mean, is this a problem that
Well,
we're solving?
I mean, I go to town hall meetings, it's kind of, I think we have the habit in a small town of thinking it's just sort of a free-for-all. And all I'm saying is, people have a right to develop their ideas without interference or, you know, pressure of any kind or anything. If somebody else wants money, apply for it. You know, I think we just need to get a little tighter grip on this, but we'll always have a record of the original grant, and certainly the applicant will keep a record of their grants. So it isn't so it's gonna be lost.
I'm just thinking, something like the town hall thing, for example, people ought to know what the financial structures of this are,
Well,
where
we-
the CPC money fits in, how that all works.
We can do that.
I don't see why there should be proprietary information that was
Well-
withheld, which is important to us in making a decision, but we don't disclose to the public.
Some grants do have that.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, larger, different types of grants, but they do, you know, larger institutions.
Yep.
But no,
Well, at any rate,
you know, I think people have a right to know how something's gonna be financed, for sure.
yeah.
Could you think of an example that we've gone through in the past few years, Ginny, where we're on the border of divulging something proprietary or confidential?
Well-
I'm trying to think of something that we've done, and
I think,
nothing comes
no,
to mind.
Not us, but I think, you know, general population comments and objections. You know, they're not always relevant. And people have a right to say what they want, but I think within limits. You know, otherwise it gets to be a little intimidating.
If you're saying at the town meeting, we have comments made that are not relevant, I would agree with you, all right?
Well, you know, it's just a small town, and
I know.
it's this idea, well, this is public money. Yeah, all grants, just about all grants are public money unless you're the Rockefeller. I mean,
Ginny,
you
are
know, we
there,
have to adhere
Like a
to
hypothetical
general
problem.
standards. You know, get an opinion from Stuart, it could
Okay.
be that. And we'll always have a record, and I do think our summary should definitely include
Yep.
some good information for people.
I just wanted to flag that as.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
that's
there's an
nice.
issue there, but-
Ginny, are there cases of some organizations that would come before a granting organization and say, this is information that we keep under wraps, like we don't want this shared?
Well, I'm not saying, I mean, our grants are, as I say, pretty simple, but you could, if you were, say, doing a federal grant or something, they might include demands for financial information that is not directly related to the grant, but it's more about the institution or more about the organization.
I could see something like the NIH having, you submit a grant to support proprietary advancement of research that you don't want disclosed to potential competitors. I can understand
Yeah.
that. But I think in this situation, this is very different than that. So I
Well,
don't know of any situation, to your point, where we had stuff that somehow there'd be injury if it was disclosed.
but why does it have to be disclosed? Why does everybody have to know every detail of the finances? As long as they know what we're giving them and enough detail of what the money's gonna be spent on, was it spent well? And is
Okay, well,
Right.
planned and so
Okay.
forth.
Let me
I
just
think
put a
we
little
had a-
flag on it, that's all.
Okay.
We had a discussion about that in the Public Information Act, if someone wanted information of what the town is granting, because we are an organization of the town.
Which is,
Jen was saying that you would be able to pull that.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
not the original grant.
I
can
think
pull
I
us-
think you could. It might have to be redacted for some part, but
Well,
I think, I did double check after we talked on Friday, and you could. I don't know that anybody here would, but people have in other places, and they just get redacted.
well,
you
and
know,
rather
so-
than redacting, why not just do a summary that satisfies everybody?
I'm just struggling to,
We'll have to work
Well, my-
through this one.
Although I
it feels like just more of a hypothetical
Well-
problem that, there's a door open in the future for this
Well,
to materialize, but it hasn't yet. It's not,
I just think, let's just err on the side of privacy for the applicant. Until that grant is in our hands, completed, then it's up to us how much you want to allow the public or whoever to. It's our responsibility to decide on these grants.
Right.
I just don't want to see anybody kind of strong-armed,
Ginny, a new subject, all right?
Yeah,
I think,
sure.
I think we put the flag on that, which is what I was trying to do. That on these deadlines, I know that you have a provision for special considerations, but how rigid are we on these? I mean,
Well,
May
no.
1st for a September, October meeting seems to me to be long in advance, certainly relative to our past practices.
Let's see,
And-
well, actually, May 1st is your eligibility application. Then it has to come to us
But it says submission deadline. So
for that.
if I miss that, am I precluded for that cycle or?
No.
Unless I have a-
People should give something to aim for, to say,
Okay.
it's really better for us
July
if
1st
it's in here.
funding.
I mean, because people are gonna have to go back and make corrections or do
Yeah.
Right.
some additional work. I mean, it's all sort of take the town meeting and then back it up from there.
Yeah.
How much time is required to write the eligibility, look at that, write the final grant, look at that, make our recommendations and so forth.
I just wonder whether July and January, or July and even February would be would give us more than enough time to process the things, but
Well, I don't know, you have to have 6 weeks, be done 6 weeks before the town meeting, it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be November,
Yeah,
not December. And the person goes to the first, we call it the first public meeting or first public hearing, which is, we review the project eligibility application. And that's where the committee just goes over it and decides even if we want to consider it.
Mhm.
We look at the overview and the details. We ask what their needs and goals are. And then we decide, are we going to move forward with this or not? Because if we do move forward with it, then the applicant then has to go into a much further detail.
Okay.
And we also probably don't want to be doing a lot of work in summer,
Mhm.
so.
And also, it's nice to be able to group things together.
So by September, everything should be in a good spot when they present again.
Well, we can try it and see how it works.
Nothing is set in stone.
Yep.
I think we should aim for
Sure.
a little.
These are
And
timelines.
anybody, if somebody wants to do a grant and get it in early, that's great. You know, but what we're saying is, here's the deadline where you have to have it in. Here's the time when we're going to review your first grant, your second grant, and when we're going to make a decision, so that people know, there's these, but that doesn't prevent anybody from getting their materials in earlier.
Right. These are timelines that you see in other CPC organizations as well, that
These
they.
are similar.
These
very
are-
similar.
Yeah.
Similar.
But, you got to fool with it.
And I just wanted to clarify something too, it's, I had re-reviewed this, so, after the eligibility, then they have X date for the final, right?
Mhm.
And then would we still continue, so they would come to present, but we would do that at different meetings and then make the decisions all at one meeting? Is that sort of what you were
Okay, so
suggesting?
let's say final application is done 1st of July.
Yeah.
Okay. Then when the review process, we're going to review after that, after the 1st of July. And then at the July CPC meeting, we're going to hold the public hearing for them, okay? And then we're going to recommend to the town by August, so another month there. I mean, we'll work with it. But
Yep.
I think the idea is to just let people know that there are
There are blocks, yep.
working towards it.
Yeah, yeah.
Help, I mean, I'm certainly willing to help people with this new process. But yeah, if you think it just isn't gonna work, I would say 6 months, give people 6 months. I mean, the applicant has to have some time too. To get all their materials together.
Is it true that they're rejected at the first public hearing? The project eligibility application is either rejected at the first public hearing or it continued?
I'd say
That's
it's
what I understood it
It's
as.
unlikely, unless we say, no, this is totally off the wall and, just absolutely not eligible at all, go back and find. Or it could be part of it is eligible, can you fix this up or find an alternative? It's not an automatic turn down.
Okay,
It's a time to help them.
that's when the
Get
liaison
on the
jumps
right
in
track.
and says, let me help you along.
Yeah.
These are things that you need to probably present.
Exactly. And I had put in the guidelines that it's up to the applicant to get in touch with other parallel interest groups.
Mhm.
If they feel they should do that. They're not, I don't think required to do that, but somebody said, we should be doing all, I said, no, that's not our job to get in
Right.
touch with every single group, for every single grant. That's the applicant's job. So, anyway.
Tell me, if an applicant is not well-versed in the structure of
Yeah.
community government, how does he do that? How does he do this lateral networking to other groups?
Well, I mean, if you were on the Historical Society, maybe you want to check in with the Historical Commission or somebody else who has a parallel interest.
You're talking about the obvious groups.
Yeah, the obvious groups.
I think we can make recommendations to that person, that applicant,
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
do the
Yeah,
eligibility
that's what I
process.
say. If you, it's your responsibility to do this.
But that's where your liaison comes in.
Your liaison can jump in and say, hey,
That's
or
good, yeah.
he's like in the emergency hotline, like just help out a little bit.
Well, I think that's partly, the purpose of the review is for us to be ready to say,
Mhm.
maybe you'd like to talk to so-and-so and so-and-so.
Right.
But it's
we're
their, we can't oblige them to do that.
Right, but we are not doing the work for them.
No,
They are,
we can't.
Anything else we should focus on?
think. Selection criteria. People should look over those just to see, get some ideas. What might be priorities for the town. Okay, final request for funding. I've put in a lot more detail here, and one of the things I say is, you have to answer every question, even if it's all answered.
You know, I applaud you for putting in all the detail because it's comprehensive. Not everyone's going to need all that detail,
No.
but it's all written down for the applicant to pick and choose from, which I think is really important, all right?
Well, it gets people thinking, well, like if you're doing an historical society project, maybe, do I need a consultant from the State Historical Society on this? Would that be a good idea? You know, I mean, we should be encouraging people to
Yeah.
think a little bigger in terms of the resources, just to make their grants better. All right, so the rest of this is sort of housekeeping. So I did revise, after Mary Ann did I saw the guides. So I think what we need is to have a letter that goes out to the grant, to the person we're going to recommend for funding, and say, if you receive this grant, all CPC funded projects must conform to certain requirements and expectations, which is
Okay.
in the guidebook.
Yes.
But I want to put that in that
Oh, yeah.
grant. So
Okay.
refer back to, the guide. These are the things that, if you accept the money, you're going to expect it to do. Sort of cross-reference things.
There are a few cross references,
Yeah,
just so that they work together.
yeah.
But it's
So I don't have to put all that information
Exactly.
in here, but. Okay.
Ginny's done a
notice-
superb job. I mean, if you looked,
Oh,
our
yeah.
previous grants were just
There
one
is
pages perhaps, and
There's a special application process which we must include, and we're supposed to. And that is if some hot prospect comes up out of the scheduled time or out of the town meeting time, there are ways to address that. And then if you want to have your funds, you gotta give us a little information. And this, mostly, I know our director would work directly with the town treasurer or whoever she sends the bills to. But we want to have a little bit of, update of how you're doing and how's your timeline and so forth. And you don't get your final money until you do a final project report.
Good idea.
Which is important for us to have.
Sure.
Absolutely.
As an historic document for us, so
Right.
but like I say, we'll have to fiddle with these.
Anybody have comments beyond what we've just discussed? Chris Senior has looked at the documents a couple of times, as a matter of fact, but he had some notes that I just got tonight from Tracy, which, let me just read them to you for people's thought and comment. I think there are three categories. So he said, while there's generally a special town meeting in the fall and winter, it does not have a fixed time. I would suggest that applications for the CPC assistance for special town meetings be limited to items which are unique, where the timing is sensitive, or involve the modification of an existing approval to increase available funding or to extend funding for a period of time.
He's basically saying maybe one, and I know we don't always have the second town meeting. So maybe we just put all our eggs in one town meeting basket.
I think what he's saying, unless it's of course, the notion title special town meeting suggests that it's a special event. The fact of the matter is it's just become a second town meeting. But what he's
Not always.
suggesting is that it's not always, but at least in my lifetime, it's been pretty steady.
Yeah.
And so it would seem to me that what he's saying is that shouldn't be a targeted area except for unusual circumstances. That there's a sense of urgency or it's a continuation of a grant, something of that nature.
You'd have to call, if you did have special circumstances, that requires that you have a special town meeting if there's not one scheduled. That's what this, and the town would have to authorize that, which is a lot. That, the hot.
Maybe what I'll do is get these notes reproduced and distributed. So
So do you
as you look at your things, you can think about them. But let me just talk about the second one. which is 5 years seems a long time to keep funding available. I would suggest a 3-year limit with an option to renew upon application for up to 2 more years. If a project is ready to go, it should be able to be completed in a timely manner.
No,
That's a
what we had
CPA,
talked.
Yeah.
but that is a CPA regulation.
But I thought it was 2 years.
No,
Do we have the?
5, is it required
No,
to be
it's-
5 or up to 5?
it could be up to 5.
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, we've had
5,
projects
I don't
that
think
just,
I have.
you know, couldn't be completed in the time we thought they were going to be.
but then
They
this
get an
allows,
extension.
this
I have to
allows for an
ask Stuart
extension.
on that.
And I think tying up money for 5 years when it's unnecessary, just because people are giving themselves extra time,
But then they have to come back and say, okay, we couldn't
Yeah.
do it, and you
Yeah.
have to extend
Yeah.
it. So,
But they do have
But
to
then
come back
what if-
twice a year anyway.
yeah, but then what if you don't have enough? You've already given it to somebody else because you thought they'd be done in 3 years.
no, but this allows for that kind of thing. And it would be, unless it was a huge project, it'd be unlikely that we would be out of money. Well,
Maybe 2 to, or
I'll
maybe 3
throw it out for
years.
your
Yeah, no,
consideration
no, I
and
think
then,
that's a good
I'm
thing.
gonna ask Stuart.
Yeah, for example, we had that house for the severely handicapped.
Um,
And by the time we sold the property on Elm Street, and by the time the state got its ducks in a row and so forth, and by the time we got contract, I mean, it took forever.
yeah.
Right. The grant recipient is also supposed to be checking in with
Yeah.
us twice a year and giving us a report on how their
Which is
project
new, and
is.
that's a good thing.
That's good, very good.
I think we have that.
And there's a time period. It's November and another date.
Well, maybe we could put that in the schedule too.
Yeah.
This is the time for
Yeah.
you.
And the third is that, while I encourage the use of objective analysis, several of the scored questions in the evaluation criteria are subjective. Degree of urgency often depends on who's giving the opinion, as opposed to whether or not a project has been identified in a planning document. Level of risk and applicant activity are also vague and might be better defined as identifiable challenges. Environmental, flooding, soil condition, et cetera, regulatory degree of da-da-da-da.
Where is he
Oh, that's
what is he referring to?
In the we have scored questions for the CPC to evaluate proposals that you had.
Oh,
Your scorecard?
Yeah, those are somebody else's, but yeah.
Yeah, but what he's saying is that some of those are not objective, they're subjective. Like, degree of urgency. Well, to me, it may be irrelevant. To somebody else, it may be life and death.
Well, I
I've seen
think,
it 2 years.
you know, it's up to the applicant to say, we only have this opportunity to do this. You know, we wouldn't decide. It
Well, I
would
think
be-
there was a question at one point was your project not able to go forward because of contract issues or contractors not being available?
Yeah.
I think we'd seen that at one point.
Which is, believe me,
Um,
Yeah.
a
But,
frequent problem.
Well, why don't I get these, ask
Yeah.
Tracy
Let me
if she
share
would email these to the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to see.
And then
That'd be great.
consider about that, and then we can get back to Chris about what we kind of think.
oh, here,
Yeah.
they're supposed to report part 6.
Yeah.
Which is page 14. They're supposed to report back in May and November. The grant recipients are supposed to report to us on their projects, like the
Well, that-
status.
That's kind of good because that would come right after we get through submitting everything for the May meeting and after we
Yeah.
get, you know, the
Right.
November meeting, that would be good. But you have that in your guidelines. I'm just referring to those and saying, if, you know, somebody's given a grant, by the way, you know, go back to this and see what you have to do.
Now, could I get a sense of the committee that we are satisfied enough with this, that we should go forward with this as a sort
Absolutely.
of template for the next cycle? And we recognize it'll be tinkered with as we go along, and we'll learn the process as it goes. But so I would entertain a motion to,
I so moved.
great. All right, Ginny?
I second it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he had enough power to have both of them.
No.
Ginny?
Yes, that's fine.
Mark?
Aye.
I'll do one more tinker.
Aye.
Aye.
Eric, I.
Darren, aye. Great.
Did you say that you said that what do we call the tech person?
Oh, well, it was Justin, and
Do
now
we have
Michelle is
somebody?
stuck with me,
Do we have some?
apparently. Yes. He told me Michelle Leary was now stuck with me.
Do you want to talk about what you want to do
Exactly.
now?
So now where do we
Yeah.
go with all this?
So,
What do we do now?
Yeah. So
nothing.
how do we make
Just
everybody
nothing.
informed and knowledgeable?
So, I had started working with Justin, and, so today was his last day. And I guess I scared him away, and so he's left us. And now, but he said Michelle will help us, but basically what we were looking to do was to sort of expand the CPC page more, a little bit more on the website, to help with promoting what we've done, what we're doing, and to also put a little more information on there for not just community members, but potential applicants and people that have questions and stuff like
With all
that.
this material beyond the
Well-
handbook and the,
Sort of, but not really exactly. So the basic stuff that would be on there could be like the mission statement, like what and I looked at lots of different towns, small towns, big towns, cities, everything. And so just having just like a sentence, like what the CPA is, and then what the CPC is, that we sort of enforce the CPA kind of. So just those two things. And then what we've already started is putting a link to, and I never remember the name of Stewart's organization, the Community Preservation Coalition,
Coalition, yes,
also
Oh,
CPC.
right.
And so we've already put up a link to the project database. So people can see not just our projects, which are in the database, but any project that's in the database, which is also helpful if you're applying for projects. You can kind of say, oh, I'm thinking about this. And you can search and say, has anyone ever, even in another town, done something like this? And what does that look like? And then it has a summary of the projects, the fiscal year, the amount, and Chris Senior had said that he is the one, maybe Tracy, you help them. He gives that information to the coalition to put into their database. And so he does that every time we vote and approve something and it goes through town meeting. He actually is the one that sends it to them and it goes into their database. And so we've already put that link up. And so just, we could highlight some projects on there, project summaries, that kind of stuff. Anything that we wanted to get out there so that people could see it. And then if we do have dates, we could put like, the eligibility form is due on this date, so that if I was, say, applying for it, I'm the historical someone and I'm going on, I can see like, oh, shoot, I better get moving on this, here's the date. Now, so that would be just like some general stuff just to kind of beef up the page so people know what we are, what we're about, and maybe some just basic info. Now, from what I could find, only the city of Boston so far and Chatham do all online applications. A lot of them are still like the PDFs, as far as I could tell. Boston uses just Google Forms. And I actually spoke with the administrator of the CPC in Boston, and she was like, yeah, we just do Google Forms. And I was like, oh, that's really easy. And then Chatham's does sort of like a version of Google Forms, but through their server. So what we would do is we could have this linked, like anything that we wanted the public to have, anything that we felt would be helpful or knowledgeable. We could have a link to the documents on the website, like, this is the Community Preservation Process Manual. Anything that was sort of like the in-housekeeping stuff, we could either have on our own private server, or database that we wanted, or you could just hold on to them over the chair is and just print them out. However you want it. So first we would just need to decide what we wanted to have out there, what we didn't. And then what the towns seem to do is they, so like what Boston does is they put their eligibility, they link directly to their eligibility form. And then they link to a PDF document that has basically the guidelines for the applicants and a working, just like a practice sheet for the application. And then once somebody is deemed eligible, then they just email them a link to fill out the online application. So it depends. Chatham has all of their stuff just linked on their website. So once we decided what we wanted to do, we could choose to do the Google route, like Boston. We could see what, capabilities we have in the town, and just do something similar. And then those documents would go to an internal database server type thing, that we would have access to see. And, but it would also save all the documents so that we could print them out ourselves. Rather than getting, like an email of a PDF form, you could we could still get those emails, but you could also just access it on the server, and the person would go in and just fill it in directly rather than filling in a PDF. And then they could edit their form as much as they want until they hit submit. And it would be there for them. So we wouldn't see it until they submitted it, but they could go in and, edit it. Now, the town of Chatham actually posts all of their applications. So when I went to their website, I could actually click on it, and you can actually see the completed applications, like the actual applications on their website.
Are those the applications that were accepted and have gone into the grant process, or even the ones that were submitted and maybe were
The ones
not
that,
so
these
good?
were the ones that they had approved,
Yeah.
from what I could see, but it was the full application was on their website.
They had, what they had approved, not what was being,
Yeah.
not what was competing for a grant.
I don't believe that they were, it would, well, you know
I
what,
mean,
it was submissions, it just
If you
said
submit,
submissions.
Okay, it should not be public on the website until we have seen it.
Right, and I'm not saying we needed to do that, I was just saying like, so they have it that looks like a PDF, whereas the woman in Boston was saying that they review it in like a spreadsheet,
Mhm.
which is how they like to look at it. And then she's like, and then, we can use that to kind of sort and search. Which I thought was really interesting that the city is just using Google Forms.
Right.
Is there a reason why only 2 people or 2 towns have done it? I mean, it seems like an obvious thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ask the towns that didn't, but,
Yeah.
What's our old, we had a form that you downloaded from.
I don't even
The
know
town
where
site.
I don't even know where
I
the
mean-
form is on our website. Is it on there somewhere? I'm sure it's there
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's-
Yeah, because you know what, I saved it somewhere, so it must have been somewhere on there. Yeah,
Is it
So-
too much work to just
so we could do
put a
like,
whole suite of documents on there that people can download one at a time if they want, or
I think at the end,
Downloadable.
I mean, from my conversation with Justin, if we just broke them up into individual documents for, so we could separate like this longer document into however it was, and then it's not hard.
Well, Jen, what's the difference between having a PDF and having a Google Docs? Like the Google, from what I understand, having a Google Docs, the person uploads right into the document, and then we're able to sort the document by kind of an Excel spreadsheet,
Mhm.
or we can
Yeah.
find information and we can sort it. So which one's easier for us?
it's easier for the applicant. Let's start.
Well, for
And
the applicant, it
us,
would be the
like For
same.
data.
It would
No,
be
I
the
mean,
same.
let's set up a system that's easy for the applicants and not everybody. is,
Right.
you know.
So it just sort of depends on how we want it to, so at the end of the day, I would think all the interfaces would be the same for the applicant, whether they, did like an editable PDF or if they did like a form. Should be the same for them, either way.
I don't know, I'm just telling them, the grants I've done, CPC, I download it to my computer and work on it there, and that's where I like to keep it, because I wanna get up, I'm just,
You then save it.
I save it on
Well,
my
you
computer.
can do that with
Yeah,
a PDF document.
Right.
like
Yes.
With.
Oh, and you can do it with the Google one too.
Well, yeah, I just know, because I've worked with like an editable
Like an editable PDF.
PDF, like when it's sent to me
Oh, right.
in an email,
Mhm.
and then you plug in all the information, and then you just kind of save it, you get a copy, and you
Yep.
send that copy off to where it needs to go.
Now, how do you have a form that you can fill in the information, but you don't want anybody changing the questions or moving stuff around or whatever? How do you, how do you
Well,
do that?
that's where the difference between the form comes in. So if
Yeah.
you use a Google form or that sort of setup, you can't manipulate the questions.
That's true, you have to have this expensive program. Oh, no, you don't.
No.
No, that's free.
Good, okay.
And you can't, if they were to do something like that, which, I believe too that Justin actually had said that the town Because all the forms are, there's a lot of forms online now, and he said we could create our own, like you wouldn't even, we could just, so we would give them the questions, they would do it. And then if we were to do it the way the city of Boston does it, we would give the person like a Word document template that they could then fill out on their own computer and then just cut and paste it in, then they have their saved copy, but they would also get an emailed copy of whatever they filled out and submitted. So they could do it before.
So you'd have to cut.
I mean, I don't,
If you wanted to do it, only if you felt, did you ever
well,
did you ever do like a camp well, I do this all the time for my kids, like a camp application. I printed
You
it.
gotta
That
make it
reminds me, I have to
simple.
do
Well, and that's why you would just fill it right out on this
well,
form.
you can also set.
Camp application?
No.
Yeah.
You
You're a bit old for that, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
What camp was this?
Or like the rec camp, and I
I know.
gotta write the pages or
There's
something.
something due on the
And I
11th.
I
This is
do
very
it, I
important.
print it out and I write it all out first, and then I type it in because I can't keep track of
Never
my
mind
kids'
the
birthdays.
spreadsheet, let's just get the forms first.
So
Yeah.
the form that's online now on our, if you look right now.
Yeah.
It's fillable.
It's an editable PDF.
Yeah.
So you could fill it out, you could save it on your
I
computer.
know, I've used that
And
form.
then you could forward.
I don't think, I think with the editable
Is it an
PDFs, you
editable
can't
PDF?
manipulate the questions.
All right, that's fine,
Yeah.
that's all. I
And
need.
that,
Change your answers. but
you can change the answer,
yeah,
but
that's
you
fine.
can't change
That's-
the
yeah,
question.
But is
There are
there-
certain,
Yeah, no.
it's the response fields that are the only thing that's editable.
Correct.
And it's like, in most cases, at least from what I remember doing it, it's like highlighted.
Yes.
So you put it's the only place you can click your cursor and is where you can type. So you can't well, I don't like question 3. I'm just gonna change question 3 to, make it
Well, this
more
is-
general.
I don't think we want them changing the
This is
questions.
why I hate blocks, because it was a devil to try to line up your computer with the lines that they had in that
And it's-
form. I mean, it was impossible.
Right.
The website does have that capability. So if you choose to take this form, we can put it on.
Right, on
Yeah.
I just like blank,
It's
boxes.
just like if you do a committee application, right?
Yeah.
So what you guys could do is have this form downloaded, yours, you fill it in, it's fillable, like you want to do, you can save one copy, the other one can come directly to the town. So if you apply for a committee, it just automatically, you don't know where to send it, but it comes to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can do that, and it could go to Tom, or the whole board, if you wanted to, do the application. Well, it's definitely, you have that ability, it's not, the
Yeah.
Yeah,
website has a lot of options.
Yeah, because what would be nice is then to have, because I don't know now, and maybe you know this, Tracy, like, if I got the email, so I have like a file on my computer where I save all the applications that had come through like this year. But like, if we wanted to go back and look at one, is there like where do like all the applications go that come in?
So that would be a question for, not Tom, but probably the former chairman, because then you can find out where, he probably had a drive. Ideally, you should have a drive for each committee, that's what we do for like advisory, that's what it's like, when you have a drive, everything is loaded up. It's not a public drive, it's just for you.
No, it's like a
Right.
drive for like a
Right.
CPC
But I
drive.
was
So
hoping.
that's what you should do, in my opinion, and you,
that's what I was-
applications in, uploaded.
And that's what I was thinking, it would get submitted to, to that drive, and there would just be,
Can
so
we-
it's a searchable.
You have access.
Can we
Electronic
submit
filing
it to the
cabinet.
town
Yeah.
for safekeeping too, or,
I'm sorry?
can we have 2 so that, I mean, the committee has one, but we have one banked with the town, so that, just for.
I
So
mean,
for,
one thing that's important, I think, when doing this is that you don't run out of space for the answers for what, there are gonna be questions that
Yeah.
applicants are gonna have to elaborate on.
You
The
want it
idea
to
is
be able
not
to
to
just-
limit it by 600 characters, like,
No, it
put all
needs to
your,
be
put all your
unlimited.
thoughts into 600
I
characters.
think
and-
I've been
and-
generous, and then I always
Yeah.
leave
It
a
needs to be
space at the
linkable
end that
stuff for
says.
photos
Well,
or.
absolutely,
Yes. Yes.
attachments, like anything,
Yeah.
anything that's gonna help the applicant and application.
I don't, those sorts of things are what you present when you present your application to the committee. All of that.
Yeah.
Why don't we ask Jen to work with Tracy and Michelle to try to figure out what would be
Yeah.
the best approach?
It's a great group.
Well, because
Right.
then too, because like talking about your summary, what would be great is, because I feel like, on the application, from what I saw, there were places to do like a nice, like a description of the process, and it'd be nice to, have that instead of like typing in and screwing it up, and,
Yeah.
it would just be easier to sort of keep track
Well,
of
can we-
everything for us.
Just do some samples or something so we can look at them and see what they, load up a couple of like, you know, a schedule, the guidelines, and an eligibility form or something, just to try it out and see how the system works.
I know that the town does have drives, for instance, with
Yeah.
conservation, we had our own drive. And it was loaded with all projects, town projects, and I could search through it
Yeah.
for different town projects by
Well,
address.
yeah, we should be doing that.
And it
too.
had lots of databases and, or rather, lots of photographs and comprehensive details in it
Yeah.
that I could pull out
Well,
from
I-
that. So it does
no.
exist.
I think in like even the final report,
Mm-hmm.
somebody wanted to.
All right.
You want the
All
history.
these in the room here are saying,
I was saying, Tom, I think at age 77, this discussion's above my pay grade.
Well, this is a conversation we've been having for months, and
This is
so
the-
you're all welcome to hear what
Good.
we've been talking about. So this is the quick, short
We're very
version.
glad to have youngsters like you
we have-
and Jen here
We
to
have great
to
faith.
sort them
Yeah.
out.
And,
it's true.
All right.
The absolute true
This is-
generation gap, bar none. I mean, just,
Oh, the technology part.
yeah, we don't get it, and we don't care.
You're right.
You know, half the time I download something, I can't find it.
Oh.
That's why we want to have it all in one place, so you never have to worry about
Well,
that
it
again.
is.
I have that
Just-
still.
just
Say,
let it-
yeah, one of the-
I'm circulating a letter that came from Donna McGee, just thanking the committee for its support. And I just wanted people to be
Nice,
aware
very nice.
that it exists.
Oh, it's really-
Any other business to come before this august body?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
As you know, I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, and I have recently resigned from the Conservation Commission after 7 years. And since I'm the Concom rep on CPC, I have also tendered my resignation to the CPC. All right, and thank you very much for putting up with my idiosyncrasies and comments and all that over the past 4 years. And I wish you all the best in the future. And there will be a replacement taking over for me from the Conservation Commission. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and
Thank
thank
you,
you
Eric.
for the timetable of appointing.
I told Tom, who's the other Tom, who's in
Tom
charge of Concom, that we have a meeting at the end of the month, a big meeting with Stuart Saginaw.
Yes.
And if he can get it done by then.
Great,
Okay, so he's aware of the time pressure and
perfect.
the needs of CPC. So,
Okay, great. Anything else any other business?
No, please find out about the public access to it. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and maybe I'm coming at it from the point of view, let's just be careful.
Sure. No, I think that's fine. All I wanted to do is flag that that's something that we might want to get
Oh, yeah.
a little bit more background on, that's all. I was,
We certainly want things saved.
yeah. All right, the chair
Great.
would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
That's my last motion with the CPC. That's my song motion.
Excellent. Well, thank you all, and thank you, Ginny and Jen and Mary Ann for
Good meeting.
great work.